Hello, welcome to Real Shame, a show where we talk about movies that have sort of fallen through the cracks for us. Movies that have passed us by, or maybe we've just passed them by. My name's Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And this week we're going to talk about some movies from my list of shame. Did I say this is Real Shame? I did say this is Real Shame.
They don't know.
Yes, it's Real Shame. If I didn't say that, I have no idea. We don't work scripted here, folks. We just have.
In case you can't tell.
We're fast and loose. Anyway, Adam's going to tell us about the movie that we're going to talk about today. So take it away, Adam.
All right. A broken down middle-aged country singer gets a new wife. Reaches out to his long-lost daughter and tries to put his troubled life back together in Tender Mercies.
You have any other family?
No. I was the only kid my mom and daddy had me kind of late in life. My daddy's been dead. He died 2 years after my husband was killed, and Mama died a year and a half ago last spring.
My mom and daddy are dead too. But I have a brother out in California someplace. We lost track of each other. I have a daughter.
You do?
She's 7 or 8 years older than your boy.
Where is she?
With her mama. Me and her mama are divorced. We didn't get along too well, and I reckon my...
Would you all stop talking? I can't get to sleep.
Tender Mercies came out in 1983. It is written by Horton Foote and directed by Bruce Beresford. Foote is a pretty well-renowned screenwriter. He's won 2 Oscars over his lifetime, and he's written movies such as To Kill a Mockingbird and The Trip to the Bountiful. And I think we'll get into what he won the Oscar for, but one of them is To Kill a Mockingbird. And the director, Beresford, he has 2 Oscar nominations, so I wonder if they were kind of, at odds with each other since Foote has more wins than he does. And he has directed a movie that we talked about, and I think we even reviewed for the show, Breaker Morant. He's also done Driving Miss Daisy and The Fringe Dwellers. Anything you want to add on any of those guys?
No.
Nope. Good. I don't know why I asked you that. I usually don't. Tender Mercies stars Robert Duvall as Max Siege, as Tessa Harper as Rosalie, Betty Buckley as Dixie, Wilford Brimley as Harry, Ellen Barkin as Sue Ann, and Alan Hubbard as Sonny. It's a movie that is on your list of shame, a movie you haven't seen, but also a movie I haven't seen. But since it's your week, I always like to kick it over to you first. So what did you know about Tender Mercies going into it? And what were your thoughts of Tender Mercies after seeing it?
I actually didn't know a whole lot about this movie. I mean, I've always been kind of aware of this movie, and I knew that it was nominated for like Best Picture and stuff back in the day. I knew that it did not win Best Picture of 1983 because the Best Picture winner of 1983 is Terms of Endearment, which is one of my favorite films. So I knew that Terms of Endearment beat Tender Mercies, but I knew that Robert Duvall, he's front and center on the poster with his cowboy hat. But that I didn't really know a whole lot about it. Besides that, it's just always been kind of one of those movies that, I would say probably from the year 2000 on to now, I've probably seen all of the Best Picture nominees for each year, maybe one or two exceptions. Like I don't think I've seen Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which I think is one of the nominees. But aside from like here and there a movie, for the most part. But as you go further back, like to the 80s and 70s and 60s, there's definitely a lot more Best Picture nominees that I've never seen. And Tender Mercies has always kind of been one of those. But I really didn't know what the story was or anything like that. So going into this, I was fairly blind. I will say I sat down to watch it, and I noticed that the runtime was only like 90 minutes. And I was like, that's unusual, especially for a drama to be a drama that was, nominated for Oscars and whatnot to be only 90 minutes long. Usually they're closer to 2 hours. And usually dramas are just longer anyways, because you need more like character development.
Yeah.
Like, horror movies and comedies, those can be 90. Those could and usually should be 90 minutes because you don't need all the character development. You watch a horror movie, you just wait for them to get killed, right? In comedy, you wait for Will Ferrell to tell a fart joke or whatever. But so this movie, I was a little not wary, but I was just like, I wonder if they're going to be able to tell a good story in 90 minutes. And I will say that my fears were unfounded because I like this movie. I thought it was really good. It's a really good, solid drama.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall, as usual, is pretty excellent in it. I think he's really good as Max Sledge. I love me a good like redemption / rebirth kind of story.
Yeah.
And I would say, obviously this movie kind of fits that to a T. Robert Duvall begins the movie like literally, he's drunk and he's like having a fight with somebody in this motel room. He wakes up on the floor, drunk or now sober, but he's been drunk the night before, and he's just like, it's time to get my life in order. He asked the lady who runs the motel, played by Tess Harper, Rosalie, did the guy I was with, did he pay for the motel room? And she's like, no. Of course, she could have been lying.
Yeah.
She's trying to get double payment, right?
She probably was getting double payment.
She's conning him. She's a con artist. No. But she's like, no, he didn't pay for it. So he's like, well, I can work it off. I don't have any money, but I can work it off, and I'd like to hang, he ends up basically just hanging around. They start to take a liking to each other.
Yeah.
And he just kind of sees that as this path to getting sober and because she tells him like, I don't want you drinking.
Yeah.
He sees this as this path to getting sober. He doesn't really want to get back into the country music lifestyle because he's kind of, a fairly well-known country artist.
Well, yeah, and it feels like he didn't even tell like Tess Harper any of that stuff.
Yeah,
like, it was all unknown to her. It's just that the people that come by the motel are like, oh,
right,
this guy's a big thing,
Right. I mean, he just wants to leave it behind, but he wants to leave that behind, but he still wants to reconnect with his daughter, played by Ellen Barkin. But no, I thought it was really. I mean, I can go further, but I'll let you say what you thought of it. But I would say overall, I thought this was a really, really solid drama. And again, I thought 90 minutes was plenty. I thought they said what they needed to say in the movie.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you on this movie for the most part. I really like this movie. I like this genre of movie too. I like the redemption side of these movies, but I also like the like down and out artist kind of musician kind of stuff like that. Like I like any of that kind of music, almost inside baseball stuff a little bit because I like music and playing music and all that kind of stuff. So I always find that stuff captivating and probably. I don't know how accurate it is because I've never had that experience in my life, but I like seeing that kind of stuff that being told, and you'll see that's kind of the theme this week is a down out musician trying to get his life together, or trying to get some foothold and all that kind of stuff. I feel like the movie the runtime is really quick. I feel like the movie still is kind of slow to get into it. And honestly, there's a couple things in the movie that I would have trimmed that I don't really feel like it's telling the story or adding much to the story. For one, like I'm kind of on the fence whether or not it should start out with him and Tess Harper being married already, because like he asked her to marry him really quick. And like the way he asked him is like, it's just kind of like odd, It's not like romantic, but I don't think that's the kind of guy he is. But I just wonder, I don't know if like those minutes building up to that is worth what they're saying versus I think that would be more interesting if it's spent like with him kind of having regrets around his daughter or trying to talk to his daughter or having another interaction with his daughter and stuff like that. Like, I feel like that's a little bit wasted. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was when they're at the dance club and like it goes to her kid and another kid talking about their dads, and it just kind of like went nowhere. It's like, what is this doing? Like, what is this adding to the story or any of that kind of characterization? It's just like it just feels random. It's like, why are we focusing on these kids? Let's focus on something else. But those are like some nitpicks I have for the movie. But overall, I enjoyed it and all that kind of stuff. I think the music's What does that sound like?
No,
Big
I
nitpicks?
was thinking about what I wrote down. I was thinking about that same scene, where they're in the honky tonk and the
Yeah.
kids are talking.
Yeah,
But about what I wrote it.
Oh,
That's why I was laughing.
okay. I see what you said. The I think the music's okay. Like
Yeah.
it's not like they're not bangers. I guess as a kid would say.
I
something
don't.
like that.
I couldn't. I couldn't
Yeah.
sing any of the songs like immediately after
Yeah.
the movie. No, they didn't stick in my head.
So, I wish the music was a little bit better. I think what we have nowadays with these kind of movies, like with the one we're reviewing Wednesday, and movies like A Star Is Born, and like Inside Louis Davis and Inside Louis Davis, right?
Llewyn Davis.
Llewyn Davis. You have catchier, better songs, and this
Yeah.
one doesn't really have that great of a song, in my opinion. No offense to the writers or anything like that. So I wish the music was a little bit better, and I do wish if this movie doesn't want to be a big movie. It's like a really small kind
Yeah.
of intimate tale, and I
Yeah.
like that about it. And I just wish it was a little bit more focused on like him trying to redeem things with his daughter and what happens with that versus some of these kind of ancillary things that kind of dabbles in a little bit is where I kind of fall in it. But that's like I said, I'm picking nits with that. I think I like it overall.
Good.
So back to you. What else did you want to say about this?
Well, first I'll say we were to clue whoever's watching, and I was chuckling because the thing that stood out to me at the honky tonk was there's a girl. It shows she's chewing gum and drinking beer at the same time, which I can't imagine tastes very good, but I thought that was pretty impressive. I think that the two kids kind of talking about their dads, it just illustrates how much. Because Sonny's the little boy, right?
Yes, Sonny's the her boy,
Sonny is crazy about Robert Duvall, because his father was killed
in the war,
in Vietnam War.
Yeah.
In the Vietnam War, he never even met him. Like his father went off to the Vietnam War while his mom was still pregnant, and so he never met his father. So Mac is the only father that this guy really has had.
Yeah,
and I really like their story because, and again, kind of the thing about the movie is. Mac, Robert Duvall's character, wants to reconnect with his daughter, played by Ellen Barkin, and he does briefly, but then she's killed in a car wreck with her husband driving drunk. She's killed in a car wreck like right after that, and that's pretty much the only time he sees her grown up.
Yeah,
which is very, very sad. And of course, he has a nice scene where he's kind of tending stuff in the garden, where he talks about, I almost died in a car wreck, but I didn't. But now my daughter's been taken from me, and that's not fair, and everything. And but his son, or his kind of adopted son, Sonny, is really like. So one thing about this movie that, I mean, sure, there's some things in it which maybe could be considered cliche or something like that, but I thought for sure Robert Duvall at some point was going to hit the bottle again. He was going to get drunk again. And I honestly thought he was going to come back because he gets mad at Tess Harper. He just kind of gets mad in general. He goes off. He's like driving his truck all crazy. He almost runs into people, and he's like cussing at people and stuff. You see him leave a liquor store with a bottle in his hand.
Yeah.
And so I thought he's going to get drunk. He's going to come back and he's going to like beat her or something. He's going to be like a horrible.
And then it cuts to her. She's like waiting up all night, wondering where he is and all that kind of stuff.
Sonny is really, really, really likes having this guy around. And he's like, is he coming home? She's like, I don't know. And he's like, will you wake me up when he comes home? I'm going to go to bed, but will you wake me up when he comes home? And so I thought it was cool that they didn't do any of those things I thought. Like he comes home, he's not drunk. He's like, I bought a liquor bottle, but I poured it all out. I couldn't drink it, and he apologizes and then Sonny wakes up and he's like, I thought you were going to wake me up when he came home or whatever. I thought that was adorable, And one thing I'll say, I thought the kid who played Sonny was really good. I thought he was a good child actor. I don't think he went on to have any kind of career, but I was impressed by his acting ability. And I think he was basically an unknown that they cast. So I thought that was cool. Bruce Beresford, the director, of course, as you said, we did Breaker Morant. He is Australian. This was his very first, American film. And just like when we did What's Eating Gilbert Grape, we talked about how it's interesting taking these, this small town slice of life, small town Americana, but it was directed by a guy from Sweden. It was directed by Lasse Hallström. So to see kind of his spin on it, Bruce Beresford, is from Australia, and from what I understand, he kind of equated this, southern kind of desolate area I mean, presumably
The
they're in like
Outback?
Central Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the Outback, right? So he's kind of does that, but it's kind of interesting, kind of seeing his take on it. But yeah, the whole like Ellen Barkin thing, I thought was sad and touching. That they do kind of meet, and it looks like she's going to be back in his life, but then she ends up running off with this
The guy she wants to marry.
guy. Yeah, the guy in her mama's band, and he ends up killing her. So
I was gonna say on your point about Lasse Hallström and Bruce Beresford, Hell or High Water, a movie that we both like. One movie that I really, really like is also directed by someone who's not from America too. I think he's from Ireland or Scotland.
Oh.
So, but it's also like a small Texas town
Yeah.
kind of movie told, through the, by someone who didn't live it and all that kind of stuff,
not
like
not
a
American.
foreigner and non-American and stuff
Right.
like that. So it's interesting. I wonder if anyone's ever done any kind of deep dive in that and talked and wrote a dissertation or anything like that, because I do think it's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, I think in all three of those cases, What's Eating Over a Grave, this movie, and Hell or High Water, they did a great job,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
And so
agree.
it's very interesting getting that kind of an outsider's perspective on it. And of course, Wilford Brimley, we love Wilford
Yeah,
Brimley, right?
yeah.
I mean, you and I got to see him in his
His
like little
hover
hover
around.
round
Yeah.
when he did a Q&A when we went and saw The Thing, and he complained about E.T. being a damn plastic
Clever.
doll and
Yeah.
getting nominated for Academy Awards while The Thing, was looked over or whatever. But Wilford Brimley, he was like, I think 48 or 49 when he made this.
Rough.
Well, that's the thing. I remember when Paul Rudd turned 50 a
Yeah.
few years, because Paul Rudd's like 53 or something like that. When Paul Rudd turned 50, there was some kind of thing on the internet saying like Paul Rudd is the same age that Wilford Brimley was when he made Cocoon, and it's like, yeah, Wilford Brimley basically has looked 75
Yeah.
from the time he was like 35
Yeah.
onwards.
Yeah.
Like he just always looked like an old man, but he's great. I think a lot of people only know him from movies like Cocoon. Well, and The Thing, I guess, but or the Quaker Oats or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
diabetes commercials or whatever that he did. But he's always really solid. And I think Betty Buckley is another one that plays plays Robert Duvall's ex-wife. They're all good. I mean,
Yeah.
I think one thing I like about this movie, I mean, I am a Texan. I live in Texas. I've lived here my entire life. I know people like this. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I know country music stars, but I know Southern people like this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I come from Southern people like this. So that, kind of has a special thing for me. So, I mean, watching it, I feel like there's a great degree of authenticity to this, to this movie. But yeah, I thought it was really solid. Again, I mean, I can't say that enough. And, again, it's pretty short, I guess, at 90 minutes,
Yeah.
but I feel like they pack enough in there. They pack a really good, solid, as you called it, intimate kind of drama.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah, me too. All right. I wanted to add a couple things on here. So Robert Duvall ended up writing some of those songs he sings for the film. So maybe
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't like his songs.
I don't like his songs. And he does his own singing. So he wrote Fool's Waltz and I dedicated to Leaving Here Forever. I decided to leave here forever. Those were all written by him. This was the theatrical film debut of Tessa Harper. And like we kind of talked about in the beginning, this film was nominated for some Academy Awards. In fact, it was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, which it lost to Andy's favorite movie, In Terms of Endearment.
not my favorite, but
It's
one of my favorites.
hands down favorite. Yeah.
I love it. I watched it before we filmed.
There you go. He watches it every day.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch it when we're done filming too.
But it did win 2 awards. It won for Best Actor for Robert Duvall, and it won for Best Original Screenplay for by Horton Foote. So yeah, it did really good. I like overall I like it. I wish it kind of dug in a little bit deeper on some things. I wish it kind of maybe cut out some things that weren't really telling the big story. But again, that's being super, super nitpicky. I think overall I enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend checking it out. So we kind of talked about where it is with awards. Where are the critics on this bad boy?
I was gonna say so it was nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. It lost both of those, In Terms of Endearment. But the best song, I guess it's fitting it lost because you didn't like the song.
I did.
You wouldn't have voted for it
if he wrote a better song.
If you were an Academy member. No, the song that won that year, I looked it up, was Flashdance. What a feeling!
That's a banger.
Yeah, it is a banger. Yeah, so that one. This is 84% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 82% audience. I could not find Siskel. Nobody's uploaded the clip, at least that I could find, of Siskel and Ebert reviewing this film. I know that they did back in 1983. Roger Ebert gave it thumbs up, though, like, because you could easily look up, as I've mentioned before, you can easily look up Roger Ebert's print reviews on RogerEbert.com. Somebody needs to do that for Gene Siskel, because I don't know. I dug and tried to find what Gene Siskel said about it, and of course, it's very difficult to find Gene Siskel's print reviews because there's just not many of them floating out there on the internet. They need. I think there is a GeneSiskel.com, but there needs to be some site that has a repository for all of Gene Siskel's print reviews. So let's get on that, because again, it's very easy to look up Roger.
I think we just need to go to Chicago, go get some microfiche from the Sun.
We're gonna have to.
Was it the Sun Times, or would he write the other one? He wrote the other one.
Ebert's sometimes. He was Tribune.
Yeah, Tribune. So we get microfiche at the Tribune and just painstakingly write it. Don't use any OCR.
Nope. Yeah. We'll type them all out.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I if I had to guess, I would guess Siskel probably gave it thumbs up as well, but I don't know.
Actually,
don't quote me on that.
I believe this is in his top movies. I think I read that on the trivia.
But all I know is Ebert gave it thumbs up, and Leonard Maltin gave it 3 stars.
All right, I was gonna look up real quick.
Well, I can keep talking.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Well, why don't you talk about what you've been?
Yeah, we'll get into that while you're looking it up. So we like to follow up our Monday reviews with what we have been watching. So Andy, what have you been watching?
That's right.
Well, I'll tell you.
It's on Robert. Oh wait, that's Ebert. You already got it. Never mind.
Oh.
Yep.
Wah. We still don't know what Siskel thought of it.
Nope.
Okay, so what have I been watching? Well, this movie was directed by Bruce Beresford. I have seen other Bruce Beresford's American films.
Yep.
I've seen Driving Miss Daisy and some other ones that he's done.
I've not seen Driving Miss Daisy.
I have seen Breaker Morant, and that's the only Australian film that I've ever seen of Bruce Beresford. So I thought I would watch another Bruce Beresford Australian film.
All right.
So I did. I almost watched a movie that he did called Puberty Blues, which I think he did pretty much, because, again, Tender Mercies is his first American film. I think he did it right before Tender Mercies, maybe. But I did not. I skipped that one in favor of a movie that he did in the late 70s called Money Movers. It stars, I don't know about star, but it has Brian Brown in it, who is in Breaker Morant and has gone on to have a successful career in the States in movies like FX and FX2 and Cocktail and some other things. It's so, like the Wrath of Man with Jason Statham, where he's like the armored truck driver, works for like a security place that they take all this cash back to this place, and it's guarded like a fortress, that kind of thing. This movie's not similar to that, but the guys basically work for a security place. They're armored truck drivers. They go in Australia, at least they call them counting houses. They're going to take the money back to the counting house. And some of the guys that work there, and Brian Brown is one of them, they're going to rob the place.
Oh.
So it's basically a heist kind of film, and it is terrific. I thought it was really, really good. I was really, really into this film. I found it super, super entertaining. Bruce Beresford, I think we may have talked about it when we talked about Breaker Morant. Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture, but he did not get nominated for Best Director when Driving Miss Daisy got nominated. And I think maybe you said something about him kind of being a journeyman director. He doesn't impose his style on it. Again, not to say that he's not talented, because he is talented. And the fact that he didn't get a nomination for Driving Miss Daisy doesn't mean that he wasn't good at directing it. He just didn't get a nomination. But it's really interesting because like Tender Mercies is completely different from Driving Miss Daisy, and they're both completely different from Money Movers. I think he does a lot of different kind of genres. Yeah, basically. I mean, I think he does a lot of different genres, but I thought Money Movers was really exciting, really fun.
That's cool.
I mean, it was a really, really cool kind of heist film. I dug
borrow
it.
that from you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the heist, takes place at the later part of the film, but there's plenty of action before that. There's plenty of stuff that happens that keeps you engaged with the movie. I thought it was cool, and Brian Brown's great. And there were other people in it that I recognize. I just, Australian actors and actresses, I just didn't know them by name.
Gotcha.
But I've seen them in movies. Some of them are in Breaker Morant. Some of them are in Mad Max and Road Warrior and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it's that guy. I just don't know their name. But yeah, Money Movers, I highly recommend that. The other thing I watched was, because we're coming off of Thanksgiving here, a movie that we talked about on the show last year, maybe, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Your Thanksgiving.
Yes, I love that film. I've seen it several times, and they just came out with a 4K version on Blu-ray. Now, I honestly didn't watch the 4K. I watched it before I got my copy of the 4K in the mail. But from what I understand, the 4K Blu-ray, it's not good. Like the reviews aren't good. But because apparently they used way too much DNR or digital noise reduction, and that can take away a lot of the fine detail. They're trying to get rid of grain, but they end up taking away fine detail from the faces and other things. So I didn't watch the 4K. I watched just the HD, the 1080p version or whatever, which I also think suffers from DNR, like heavy scrubbing, but I don't think it's that bad. But I love that film. But the main reason why I got the 4K Blu-ray is because for years now, they've talked about how there was a lot of stuff cut from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And there was a guy that did a video on YouTube sometime within the last year or two, I think, who kind of broke down the things that were cut from the script. Mm-hmm. And there was some, a still shot here or there, but they didn't have the footage because it had never been released. I think up till now, there's only been maybe one deleted scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles that's always on like the DVD and the Blu-ray. Yeah. Well, this 4K Blu-ray has the footage. Like it has, it's over an hour's worth of cut scenes, like deleted scenes and extended scenes.
Gotcha.
So I watched all of that and just ate it up. Yeah.
Movie in of itself.
Well, it was just really cool to see this extra footage. I mean, and it looks rough. They didn't clean it up. Yeah. But it was just really, really cool to see this really extended scene, and some of it you could tell why they cut it. I could tell why they trimmed this or that. But I just thought, because I'm so familiar with the film and I've seen it so many times, seeing all this extra kind of bonus stuff just made my day. Like, gotcha. I thought it was really cool. And just watching the movie again, I watch it every Thanksgiving or try to. I love it. So it was great.
Oh, very cool.
What have you been watching?
I've seen a couple things. I watched a couple Netflix series, and I've watched a movie. So I ended up watching the new DC superhero movie, Black Adam. Rock was announced to Dwayne The Rock Johnson was announced to be Black Adam like 15 or 16 years ago. Like this is like over a decade in the making. Like I think crazy. It was like it was like in the early 2000s. Wow. They're like, do you want to be? I think it was like 2008 or something like that.
He announced it when he was a child.
He did.
They were like, when you grow up and be an actor, you're going to play Black Adam. He's like, sure.
Even you're young Rock. I think they gave him the option of being Shazam or Black Adam, and he chose Black Adam. I heard not great things about this movie going into it. I really didn't have high expectations. The only reason why I really wanted to watch it was Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate. Like, I thought that was pretty great casting, and I thought it would be pretty interesting to see him in that role. And I think, Pierce Brosnan adds a lot of gravitas to stuff, and I think it fits him really well. I think it's a really, inspired casting, I would say. Yeah. The movie's terrible. I mean, the movie's very low-tier Marvel superhero, or not Marvel, the DC superhero movie. It's not great. It suffers from a lot of the same things all the DC movies do, where you have a giant CGI villain in the third act that they're fighting and all that kind of stuff. And the story is just not great. It's the characters are not interesting at all. The movie's kind of flipping between this flashback and what's going on now, and it's not great. It's just there's not even The Rock could save this one. It's not a good movie.
Where does it rank among the DC movies? Is it worse than all of them? Worse than Batman versus Superman, or I don't know what your ranking is. I know you're not high on Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman or whatever. Justice League. I
would say it's bottom tier, right? So for me, top tier of the DC movies have been Shazam, I think is my favorite of all those. And then the Zack Snyder Justice League was surprisingly good. I was shocked more than I think anyone. And then I think mid tier are your Man of Steels, your Batman versus Superman, and then an Aquaman, and then bottom tier is like Black Adam and both Suicide Squads because I hate those and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say it's pretty low. I would say maybe it's the lowest because I don't know. I think it's maybe tied with the first Suicide Squad because there's not a lot of redeeming about the first Suicide Squad except for like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And with this one, I only have like Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate. The guy who plays Hawkman, I just feel like he's just in a different movie and it just doesn't fit very well and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen some like interviews with the guy and he seems really cool and really nice and really like he seems like a cool guy, and I hate that I just don't like the way he looks like on screen. He just kind of has this antagonistic relationship with like everyone in the movie. And he's supposed to be this hero and he thinks he's like this. I don't know. It's just not great. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, it's just overly CGI and all that kind of stuff. It's not good. The other thing I watched was another DC property. It's a Vertigo who DC bought, and I watched the Sandman series on Netflix. So this is based off the Neil Gaiman Sandman graphic novels and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I say overall it's a really good series. I think I like the casting in it. I think it's really great. And I think it's really interesting. I think the first half of Sandman is far better than the second half of Sandman. Because the first half, like you something happens to Sandman. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but you have him like trying to gather things that he's lost. And so he's like driven and he's like being very proactive and he's like doing stuff. And then the latter half, it's not, he kind of takes a backseat to another character that things are happening to that character. And he's kind of like trying to intervene, but he's trying not to intervene. And he's more, he's not taking action. He's just kind of like more reactive than like active. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of takes away a lot from the show. But the first half is really good where he's just like, no, I need to do this. This is what I need to do. I need to get this stuff and stuff like that. So overall, I like it. I wish I think there's another season because I think it did well enough. And if they do another season, I hope they make it more like the first half of this first season where Sandman's taking more of an active role rather than like a passive role in like his story and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know that was like a lot of euphemisms and trying to describe the thing without telling you what the thing is, but hopefully that made sense overall, like my general feelings on that. The last thing I got into, and Kirby actually got into, and we're really surprised, is this show on Netflix again called Formula One Drive to Survive. Have you heard about this at all? Have you seen this?
No.
It's a reality series that follows, each season follows a year of Formula One racing. And I think it starts in like 2018 and, progresses on for each season. And I find this super fascinating. I like cars in general. So, I think I have a predisposition to like this kind of stuff. But it does a good job. It does what I like most about sports documentaries is it gives you, like sports and stuff like this are generally dramatic and interesting because you have like conflict and people trying to win and all that kind of stuff. And so like any kind of sport's going to have, good storytelling is going to be interesting. And it does what great sports documentaries do is gives you like backstory and gives you like characterizations and kind of helps you understand a little bit more. So going into the show, I knew nothing about Formula One at all, but now I know a lot more, and I know like about the drivers and like the companies they work for, the builders and all that kind of stuff. And it's just super fascinating kind of seeing this, and you get to see like the journey of different drivers like as they progress in their career, because when the show starts, there's a driver named Lewis Hamilton who's like one of the best drivers of all time, and he's like constantly winning. And then I know with now he's not winning, there's another driver that sets up to start winning, and you can kind of see his progression in the show and how he kind of does stuff like that. So again, I heard it was really good. I gave it a shot and I got pulled in. I really like the Formula One Drive to Survive. It's not for everyone, but I enjoy the spit out of it, I guess.
Do you know how a car works now?
I do know how the car works. Yeah. I've been watching
the gas and the brake.
And the brake and the clutch. I've been watching YouTube videos about Formula One now.
You are into it.
Yeah, like talking about like
you're gonna be a Formula One driver next.
I don't think I could. But talking about like the things they do to the cars, like all that kind of stuff. There's a rich history of stuff going on. I guess with any sport, there's a rich history, but this one I really taking a shiny to. I don't know if I'm ever gonna watch like Formula One like weekend after weekend after weekend because that seems exhausting to me. Like I've never been that kind of person, but as long as they're making this show, I'm gonna at least watch it. And then I'm trying not to spoil myself by hearing who wins, because that's the hard part. Is this show comes out like 6 to 8 months after the season's over.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh well, I kind of know what's gonna happen.
It's gonna be hard, I would think, but I don't know.
Yeah, because YouTube keeps on showing me like different like Formula One announcements and stuff, and I'm like, oh no.
Hey, you watch this, you'll also like this.
Yeah, pretty much. So I know like different drivers are on different cars this year and who's been winning and all that kind of stuff because of, it's part of it's current events, I guess.
Cool.
All right, so that's me. It's Sandman, Black Adam, Drive to Survive.
Nice.
All right. So why don't you ask me what?
Oh yes. Where are we at? Where's my head? All right. So
where's
today
your head
we
at?
talked about we talked about a movie with an aging country music star who's kind of down and out and not quite the star that he used to be. So what movie did you pair with Tender Mercies?
Yeah, so as soon as I saw Tender Mercies on your list, and I believe we actually talked about it a few weeks ago on the podcast. I feel like we've mentioned it at least once on the podcast.
Tender Mercies?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or maybe you and I did. It came up. The first movie I think of when I think of Tender Mercies is the movie I decided to pair it with. It's about the same kind of story, down out, older musician trying to get his life back together. And this one stars
Jeff Bridges.
I was going to say Jeff Daniels. This one stars Jeff Bridges, and it's called Crazy Heart. So stay tuned Wednesday for Crazy Heart. All right, well, that's everything. Tender Mercies and more. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It really does help the show, and we really do appreciate it. And stay tuned Wednesday when we figure out just how crazy Jeff Bridges' heart is. And we'll let you know soon, guys. Have a good one.